and have our sheriff sit down this and every week, brought to you by our great friends at our community credit union. Travis Adams and Casey Salisbury are here today. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you here. First day of fall.
Yeah, it's beautiful out,
Isn't that
too.
something? It's starting to get crisp, and it's nice out there. You guys have been recently accredited once again. We'll talk a little bit about that process, and that's why, Casey, you brought the expert in here.
Oh, yes.
Is that right, Travis? How are you doing?
Good, very good.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the accreditation process and what that means for the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, so the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs has an accreditation program that they run where agencies can go through a process by which they become accredited as a state accredited agency. And there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 different standards that you have to meet, and many of those standards have multiple prongs within them in order to meet that standard.
So what does that mean for the Sheriff's Office if a call comes in and they need assistance if a surrounding county or surrounding municipality or something needs help with something, they would lean to you first because of this accreditation, or how does that distinguish? Why wouldn't every entity be accredited, I guess?
I would tell you that, and Travis can discuss some of the more detailed areas, but the accreditation standards are that your agency in different areas, whether it's your civil division or your evidence and that things, that you're following appropriate best practice standards throughout the process. When a piece of evidence comes in, it gets brought in correctly by the deputy, entered into the system, it's maintained throughout the court process, and then at the end of that, if it's been allowed to maybe given back, that entire paperwork process and those kind of things are followed exactly all the way through.
Okay.
That has to do with how you do civil papers, how your policies and procedures are followed, and I'll let Travis take over that.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly difficult to recertify for accreditation after a 4-year period. You have to do that every 4 years, and you have to track everything that you do in the department. So if you have a 2-year training requirement and you miss one person 2 years ago, you will not reaccredit.
Wow.
It's a 100% or nothing standard, and so the bar is very high, but what it does tell people is that your agency is meeting the best practices in law enforcement, that in all of these various areas, whether it's financial handling, whether it's security of your computer systems or your the integrity of your evidence system or whatever it happens to be, that in all of these various areas, including patrol operations, that you're meeting the best standards of the industry.
And so, I was just going to say, so then that also, I would imagine, is challenging at times too, as new laws become enacted every year or new standards are increased in different things. You have to make sure you can't go off of, well, we did this 2 years ago, and well, we don't do that 2 years, and we do that now. Is that right?
You have to adapt to different things that come out. I think that one of the things that is important about this is that this last year, when we looked at it going into accreditations, there's 39 counties in the state of Washington. This is our second time being accredited, and I'll explain the very first time, actually kind of third time, to you. But when you go through this accreditation process, there was only 5 sheriff's offices, now going to be 7 out of 39 that are fully accredited.
Wow.
So it is difficult to do, and in a sheriff's office is particularly difficult, I think, because a sheriff's office has so many different moving parts, there's so many facets, having a civil division and having huge amounts of evidence and all these different rules and regulations you have to follow. And sheriff's officers are very diverse, and they're not one-dimensional, and so you have to be up to standard in every single area. But it demonstrates that your agency is with the highest competency within the best practice standards. And this year, I think now there will be 7. There's a number of city agencies that there's 200 and some city agencies, but I'm not sure how many of them are accredited, but there's a number of them more than sheriff's offices. But we're one of 5 right now, going to be one of 7 as we accept this again. I have to go back to the very beginning. I want to say 1987 or 89. I can't remember. It was the first year when I was here. We went through the accreditation process. Mason County did under Sheriff Holter, and it was much less stringent then. But I remember looking at our policy and procedure manual. It was a few sheets of paper inside of a paper notebook, and the accredited on our policy and procedure manual are these huge 3-ring binders of policies and procedures that we have to follow and be accountable for. And then right after that, Thurston County, when I went to go over there, they started the accreditation process, and they had this little tiny policy and procedures manual. I said, well, you don't have no idea what you're getting into. And for weeks in the hallway of our office over there, they were setting out, upgrading all the policies and procedures. And then we ended up with almost 2 binders of policies and procedures there. And so not a lot of people have come back and reaccredited, which is Travis is talking about. It's even tougher because you got to continue to show that you've maintained the standard. So we're really proud of that. And I want to mention, and I'll let Travis speak a little bit more on what the work that goes into it. But our Sergeant Severance, Travis guided us through the first one. It was incredibly difficult. And Trevor took us through the second accreditation standard, demonstrating those practices and making sure we were following them.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Trevor Severance for the good job that he did. I was the accreditation manager the first time, but I turned it over to him when I took over the Undersheriff slot, and he's been the one who's been putting all the files together and documenting all the things that you need to do to show proof for every one of the standards in the accreditation process. So he's just did a fantastic job and really carried us through that.
And how long are you going to, does this accreditation last for? Is it a 4 years? But I mean, you're working on the next 4 years right now. There's no downtime.
It never ends.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the day after we got done with accreditation, I sat down with Sergeant Severance and we started talking about what we needed to do to make sure that we got this year's stuff done, because 4 years from now, what we did for this year will make or break whether or not we pass the next one. And so it's a continuing process.
So not only is that attractive to potential new deputies and folks who work within the sheriff's office, but then when it comes to, I don't know, statewide, people are looking at you statewide, even nationally, when accreditation comes up and only 7 of 39 are listed. Does that help in any other kind of aspects of the way you guys look to do?
I was told in the beginning years, and I don't know if it's really pans out that way, but I was told that it helps your liability issues within a sheriff's office to show that you're following all best practice standards all the way through your processes in different types of, if you have insurance ratings or something like that within lawsuits or anything within your agency. I don't know how that really pans out, but it does demonstrate that you are competent in all these different areas across the board on the best practice standards. What's nice about it now is that years ago, very minimally, I was got asked, as we had passed, to set on be an accreditor in another agency, where you go in and you research that other agency, and I had a chance to sit in on that and a small part of it. Now our agency is being asked to do evaluations on assessments on other agencies, to be a part of that, because we've done it a number of times.
Wow, that's great.
Are pretty good at making sure we're meeting all the standards.
Cool. Well, that's very exciting, and another feather in the cap for Mason County. Travis, good to see you. Casey, good to see you.
See you guys.
You guys have a good rest of your day here.